The dining room was loud with laughter, clinking glasses, and that familiar warmth my family always seemed to have, until it came to me. I sat quietly at the table, pushing food around my plate, already sensing something was coming. My younger sister, Melissa, suddenly stood up, pulling her fiancé Mark to his feet with her. She looked radiant, confident, like she always did when she knew she had everyone's attention. "We finally chose our wedding date," she announced, her voice ringing through the room. "June 14th. My chest tightened instantly. June 14th. That was my birthday. For a second, I honestly thought she would correct herself, laugh, say she forgot. But instead, she smiled wider, clearly enjoying the pause. My parents clapped enthusiastically, my mom already tearing up, my dad nodding proudly like Melissa had just won an award. I spoke quietly, almost hoping no one would hear. "That's my birthday." Melissa turned toward me with exaggerated surprise. "Oh yeah," she said casually. "I forgot." Then she shrugged. "You can celebrate another day. This is more important." No one defended me. No one even looked uncomfortable. The applause continued, drowning out whatever was left of my voice. In that moment, something familiar settled in my stomach, the same feeling I'd carried my whole life. I was invisible again. My name is Rachel. I was 27 years old, working remotely as a software developer. I lived alone, paid my own bills, and built a quiet, stable life I was proud of. But in my family, my accomplishments were never impressive, not compared to Melissa. Melissa was 24, emotional, loud, always in the center of everything. She cried easily, demanded attention, and my parents rushed to protect her like glass. I was the easy child, the one who didn't need much, which slowly turned into the child who didn't get much. My birthdays were often pushed aside. "We'll celebrate later. It's just a birthday. You understand, right?" And I always did, or at least I pretended to. This year, though, I'd planned something special. Months earlier, I'd told everyone about a small trip I was taking with friends. No drama, no party, just peace. Melissa knew. She remembered. I was sure of it. After dinner, I tried to talk to her alone in the kitchen. "I told you this mattered to me," I said carefully. "I told you months ago." She rolled her eyes. "Rachel, seriously? You're almost 30. Birthdays aren't a big deal." "They are to me. My wedding is once in a lifetime," she snapped. "Your trip isn't." "There were other dates." She smirked. "This one was cheaper, and honestly, I figured you'd cancel anyway. You always do." That sentence cut deeper than she knew. When I spoke to my parents, hoping they'd finally stand up for me, they didn't. "Don't ruin this for your sister," my mom said. "Be mature," my dad added. Mature. That word had followed me my entire life, always meaning step aside. A week later, at a family gathering, a cousin asked the obvious question. "Isn't that Rachel's birthday?" Melissa laughed loudly. "Yes, but she's giving it to me as a gift. She's so sweet." Everyone smiled at me, complimented me. I nodded, trapped by politeness. That night, I overheard her talking to Mark. "She'll deal with it," Melissa said. "She always does. Mom and Dad will make sure." Something inside me finally broke. The planning only got worse. I wasn't included in group chats. I wasn't asked to be in the bridal party. At the bridal shower, Melissa joked about me being married to my laptop, about how independence scared men away. The room laughed. I smiled until my face hurt. Then my mom called. "Melissa's a little short on the venue payment. Could you help? Just 3,000." I stared at the wall in disbelief. "You want me to help pay for a wedding on my birthday? You make good money. You don't really need it." I said no. That night, alone in my apartment, I realized something important. My family only valued me when I was useful, quiet, giving, convenient. What they didn't know was that 5 years earlier, I'd started a side business, custom software for small companies. It grew faster than expected. I invested carefully, real estate, stocks, long-term assets. I lived modestly on purpose. By 27, my net worth was over $1 million. I never told them. I knew exactly what would happen. 3 weeks before Melissa announced her wedding date, I'd been looking at investment properties. That's when I found it. A small, luxury oceanfront resort. Profitable, beautiful. The owner was retiring. I made an offer. Negotiations took weeks, and then one day, my agent called. "Congratulations, Rachel, you own the resort." My heart raced. "What's booked for June?" "There's a wedding on June 14th, she said. "Payment isn't complete." My stomach dropped. It was Melissa's wedding. I contacted my lawyer immediately. The contract was clear. Full payment was required 7 days before the event. They were already late. Legally, I could cancel. I didn't rush. I gave reminders, clear warnings, professional emails. 3 days before the wedding, Melissa called hysterical. "They're canceling our wedding." I asked calmly, "Did you pay?" "We're waiting on money." "You missed the deadline." "How do you know the contract?" I took a breath. "Because I own the resort." Silence. Then screaming, accusations. My parents called furious, calling me cruel and heartless. "I'm enforcing a contract," I said evenly, like any business owner would. I offered a new date, 1 week later. They accepted. On June 14th, my birthday, I walked along the beach at the resort I owned. I watched the sunset. I felt calm for the first time in years. Melissa's wedding happened a week later. I attended as a guest. She barely spoke to me. Her husband thanked me quietly. My parents slowly changed. Not completely, but enough. What I learned is simple. Boundaries feel cruel to people who benefited from you having none. Standing up for yourself isn't selfish. Sometimes the quiet one isn't weak. She's just done being silent. After Melissa's wedding was finally over, I thought things would go back to normal. I was wrong. The silence that followed was louder than any argument we'd ever had. No one called to ask how I was. No one acknowledged my birthday at all. Not even a text. It was as if June 14th had never existed. For the first time, that didn't break me. A few weeks later, my mom invited me for coffee, just the two of us. That alone felt strange. She stirred her drink for a long time before speaking. "You embarrassed the family," she said quietly, not meeting my eyes. I took a slow breath. "I enforced a contract, the same way you taught me to follow rules growing up." She frowned. "This wasn't about rules. This was about family." I finally looked at her. Family didn't protect me when my own birthday was taken from me on purpose. Family laughed while I was humiliated. Family asked me for money, but never asked how I felt. She didn't respond right away. For once, she had no immediate defense. "I didn't know you felt that way," she said eventually. I smiled sadly. "You didn't ask." That conversation didn't fix everything, but it cracked something open. My parents stopped assuming I'd always bend. They stopped volunteering my time, my money, my patience. The change was subtle, but real. Melissa, on the other hand, stayed distant. She avoided me at family events, spoke through my parents, and pretended I didn't exist. For months, I wondered if I'd gone too far. Then, one evening, my dad called. "You know, your sister's struggling. Married life isn't what she expected." I didn't feel satisfaction. I felt clarity. "I hope she figures it out," I replied, "but I can't fix things for her anymore." Owning the resort changed my life in ways I hadn't anticipated. I hired a management team, upgraded the property, expanded bookings. Couples praised the atmosphere, the professionalism. The business thrived. What surprised me most wasn't the money, it was the confidence. For the first time, I trusted myself fully. I stopped shrinking in conversations. I stopped explaining my choices. I stopped apologizing for existing. On my 28th birthday, I hosted a small dinner at the resort. Close friends. Laughter, no tension, no guilt. When the sun set over the ocean, I realized something that made my throat tighten. This was what peace felt like. Months later, Melissa finally reached out. A short message, no apology, just, "I still think what you did was extreme." I typed back slowly. I think what you did taught me who I needed to be. She didn't reply, and that was okay, because I no longer needed her understanding to validate my choices. I used to believe strength meant endurance, taking hits quietly, being the bigger person, swallowing hurt to keep the peace. I know better now. Strength is knowing when to stop accepting less than you deserve. If you're the sibling who's always expected to sacrifice, to adjust, to give without receiving, hear this clearly. You are not difficult for wanting respect. Sometimes the moment you stop being convenient is the moment you finally become free. And freedom, it's worth every uncomfortable boundary you have to set to get there.